everybody talks about this place being a dadgum swamp. It's not a swamp. A swamp is something cool God created. It filters water. Animal life lives and flourishes around it. This is a sewer. This is created by man, and it needs to stop.
And it needs to stop. Well, I got it. Don't insult swamps by calling Washington, D.C. a swamp. That is Congressman Tim Burchett on the state of Washington, D.C. Kind of fun, I think. Republican member of Congress. And pretty good line, I've got to say. How dare you insult swamps by calling Washington, D.C. a swamp? A swamp is something kind of cool and beautiful that God created. This is a sewer. Yes, sir. Congressman Tim Burchett. And he might be onto something there, I've got to say. Pretty good stuff, pretty good stuff. Well, a very good and happy Thursday to you once again. We continue to be at 888-630-9625. Tim Burchett of Tennessee, of course, as any child of six can tell you. And we have a great many stories to share with you today because there are so many. And we've got, what is this? The latest update at the CDC having to do with vaccines and the menace, the dangers of vaccines. That's going on today in Washington and beyond. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, again, as any child of six knows. But we have that going because this is kind of wackadoodle-doo. News Nation has the story. A Center for Disease Control and Prevention webpage has been revised, changing previous language that firmly stated vaccines do not cause autism. See, the website firmly stated vaccines do not cause autism. Now, because you got this Democrat in there, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan in Los Angeles, California, and now the Democrats are closer on the political spectrum to Sirhan Sirhan than they ever could be to Bobby Kennedy, the senator. But never mind that. Back to the CDC. The updated text breaks from the agency's longstanding position and suggests some studies have not fully ruled out a potential connection. The claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. The revised web page reads, adding that studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. RFK Jr. has accused the American Medical Association of lying about vaccines and also about transgender youth. What are the Democrats? What is it with sex and children and Democrats? Keep them away from the kids. The change comes under the leadership of Health and Human Secretary, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose history of promoting vaccine skepticism drew questions during his Senate confirmation. Because Democrats don't want to question anything. They're anti-scientific. They don't know how many genders there are, and they don't want you questioning whether there are 130 genders or not. Senator Bill Cassidy, the Republican of Louisiana, is also a medical doctor, by the way, a physician, who was unsettled about Kennedy's anti-vaccine work, said Kennedy pledged he wouldn't change existing vaccine recommendations during his Senate confirmation process. Boy, it's amazing. The news media, they can latch on to things from the past if it's political in its nature. Just extraordinary. Senator Cassidy, Dr. Cassidy, also said Kennedy pledged the CDC would not remove statements on their website pointing out that vaccines do not cause autism, according to the Wall Street Journal. I got to tell you, politics, everything is politics. Politics. Goes all the way to the palace, Everything's about politics. Yes, sir. Just crazy. We've got crazy articles, crazy news stories for you today. And there's one out of New Jersey that is pretty wackadoodle-doo, having to do with the Democrats again. New Jersey Globe is the source on this. Ex-Van Drew staffer, this is Congressman Van Drew, who is Republican, but this is a crazy story. Ex-Van Drew staffer staged fake attack, writing, quote, Trump whore, end quote, across her stomach and alleging men held her down and cut her body, and they cut words into her body, and it turns out it's all fake, and called her a Trump whore. It's a crazy world out there, and politics is a wacky business. And here's a picture of the nice young lady, the ex-Van Drew staffer, staged fake attack, writing Trump whore across her stomach and alleging men held her down. Now, this is kind of Tawana Brawley. It's a little bit Tawana Brawley. It's a little bit Jesse Smollett. It's a little bit like 100 other fake staged hate crimes that weren't hate crimes. They weren't hate and they weren't crimes. They're just mental people. Natalie Green, charged today by U.S. attorney in bizarre hoax. Natalie Green is the young woman in question, a 26-year-old Ocean City woman who claimed she was brutally assaulted because she worked for Representative Jeff Van Drew, a Republican of Ocean City, instead orchestrated the entire incident. Sure. Now this is something I'd never heard of before, paying a scarification artist, I had to go over that word a couple of times because I'd never seen the word scarification before, but apparently Democrats find scarring themselves a worthy hobby. Paying a scarification artist to wound her and staging the scene with zip ties and Trump whore written on her stomach and Van Drew is a racist carved into her back or written on her back by the scarification artist. Federal prosecutors alleged today that was yesterday, of course. Natalie Green, listen to this now. Rutgers University law student. She wants to be a lawyer. So you gotta. Why do you think they call them liars? So Natalie Green, a Rutgers law student, allegedly concocted the hoax in July with an accomplice. Sure. Making a late-night 911 call to report that she had been ambushed by 3 men on a nature trail in Egg Harbor Township. Sounds like an illegal alien kind of case, doesn't it? But it gets crazier from there. Police officers found Green bound with black zip ties, her shirt pulled over her head. Well, naturally, you got to show the scarification artist's work, right? And the political slurs scrawled across her torso. She told police her supposed attackers had a gun and threatened to shoot her and struck her in the head. They struck her in the head, and they said, fortunately, I mean, this is a mockable crime because none of it ever happened. None of it ever happened. But they called the Republican congressman a racist. They wrote it on her because they had to write it on her. Prosecutors say nearly every detail was fabricated. Wait a minute, how could every detail be fabricated? Isn't that crazy? Every detail was fabricated. Well, they said nearly. She was awake that day. But Green allegedly drove to Pennsylvania and paid a body modification artist $500 to carve the wounds into her face, neck, and upper body using a pattern she had provided in advance. Must be an art student before becoming a law student. Investigators later found matching zip ties in her Maserati SUV. She's a law student at Rutgers. She works for a member of Congress. She drives a Maserati SUV. I didn't even know Maserati made an SUV, but I'm sure it's a very nice car. Cell phone records showed that 2 days before the purported attack, her co-conspirators searched online for zip ties near me. So near me. You got to do the near me part because otherwise you wouldn't know where to find them. Zip ties near me. and a discovery authorities cited as further proof that the incident was staged. She said one or more of her attackers held her down, cutting her and writing on her body. Several days later, after receiving medical treatment for her wounds, this is like a scene in Dirty Harry where the creepy killer hires somebody to beat him up so he can blame Dirty Harry for beating him up. Remember that? And then he calls him a racial slur at the end to make sure he beats him up real good. Crazy stuff. So she received medical treatment for her wounds. Green was again asked to describe her alleged attack to law enforcement officers, including an agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Interviews of Green and the co-conspirator did not match. Oh, no, you guys got to get your story straight, you know. Investigators used cell tower locations to obtain video footage and evidence that she went to a dollar store in Ventnor to purchase the zip ties. You got to look out for this stuff. You know, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Isn't that great? Just amazing stuff. Green appeared before U.S. Magistrate Judge Elizabeth Pascal earlier in the day and was charged with only one count, of conspiracy to convey false statements and hoaxes, and one count of making false statements to federal law enforcement, according to acting U.S. Attorney and Special Attorney Alina Habba. She is the acting U.S. Attorney and Special Attorney Alina Habba. And she's the acting U.S. Attorney because the Democrats are obstructing everything in the Senate and won't confirm President Trump's picks because they're third world tree dwellers, the Democrats are. She was released on a $200,000 unsecured bond. The complaint did not identify the federal official, but New Jersey Globe has confirmed that it was Van Drew, Republican Congressman Van Drew. The co-conspirator has not been identified. Sure. She began working part-time for Van Drew in 2022 and later served as his constituent advocate. She started law school last fall. I think she'll make a great lawyer for the Democrat Party. Isn't that great? A statement from Congressman Van Drew's congressional office said they were deeply saddened by today's news. While Natalie is no longer associated with the congressman's government office, our thoughts and prayers are with her and hope she's getting the care she needs, the Van Drew office said. That's a very polite and well-phrased way of saying she is a mental case. Law enforcement asked Green whether the words written on her were similar to those on postcards sent to Van Drew's South Jersey office. There's so many. I mean, yeah, racist. Windmills belong on your grave, like stupid. I mean, have such a bunch of little things that they're. So she's a crazy person. Constituent services. She got hate mail written to the Republican congressman, and then she decided to hire somebody in Pennsylvania to carve these things on her body. And I got to tell you, the pictures of her cut up shoulder and neck and things looks like this is really serious stuff. This is crazy. I couldn't even count the number of cuts here, dozens. And I'm talking like foot-long cut down the right arm from the shoulder down toward the elbow, and half, like 6-inch cuts, 8-inch cuts, 1 foot-long cuts on her neck, on her right chest, on her arm, cut up, and then crazy things written on her, like Van Drew's a racist. And she claims she was grabbed by men and all this happened. She's just going to be like Real Housewives of the Democrat Party or something. Crazy. Sad story. We'll call it a sad story. It's a sad, sad situation. Those are lyrics. I just threw some lyrics in there. You know that the all-new third-generation Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier has finally arrived, and the third generation builds on the incredible success of the previous 2 generations, which had already earned thousands of 5-star reviews on Al Gore's amazing internet. It became a bestseller in no time. The new Thunderstorm uses 2 technologies that studies have demonstrated help to kill up to 99.9% of bacteria and viruses like the Wuhan floating in the air in your home and your office that your family breathes. It also removes dust and pet dander and smoke and a whole lot more from the air. And it helps get rid of any odor. Stinky odors. The thunderstorm will help get rid of any stinky smell, guaranteed. Odors from kitty litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smoke, liberals, musty basements. No match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. And the smells disappear in a matter of seconds. Right now, you can save $200 American dollars on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for a whole home protection. You can put one in your basement, your family room, your teenager's room. Put it in a place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code CHRIS3, CHRIS, and the number 3 to save $200 on 3 thunderstorms. To make great gifts, too. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is CHRIS3. Yes, sir. Great stuff. All right, so those are some crazy stories. That's for sure. I also have gay sheep coming up. I've got the story on gay sheep. That is coming up as well. And the gay guy that was working at the FBI, but he isn't anymore. I don't think that connects to the sheep, though. The Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, very angry. CDC in turmoil after agency backpedals on debunking vaccine autism link. Well, they say it hasn't been entirely disproven that there's any association. Let's grab a quick phone call. Let's go to James calling from Wilmore, Kentucky. James, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, thank you, brother. I know that you think with a pretty much biblical worldview, and so I thought I'd call up because it's always bugged me how we hear about these hoaxes, and yet for true social justice, we look at the Bible when Moses gave the instruction to form a civil society that would function. He says, people who bear false witness against their neighbors to cause certain legal punishments on them, when they are found to be liars, they must suffer the same penalty that they sought to bring on another. And yet we don't really hold up for true justice like that.
Well, that's true. There's no doubt about that. And we don't very, very often as a culture and a society follow biblical teachings, that's for sure. But this woman who is an employee of a Republican member of Congress, she's bearing a lot of false witness, isn't she, James?
Yes, it's sad, and it happens everywhere all the time.
It does. Yeah, we've been tracking it here on the radio show for a lot of years, and we've seen more examples than I can count of people with, fake swastikas that they drew themselves and fake nooses and the juicy smoolays. They love being the victim. I mentioned the RFK story, and the Democrats are very angry about this. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course, and the Washington Post headline, under RFK Jr., CDC promotes false vaccines autism link. See? And that's their headline. The CDC website now says health authorities ignored evidence of a potential connection between vaccines and autism, despite dozens of studies showing no link. That's when the Democrat Party turns on you, you can be a member of the Kennedy family. You can be RFK Jr., and the Washington Post will turn on you. Now, it's crazy. Axios, the left-wingers at Axios, CDC changes website to promote debunked vaccine autism link. They're all using exactly the same language. It's kind of like gravitas over here. Yeah, I was talking about this. I never followed up on that, did I? But the gravitas and the Rush Limbaugh, the gravitas, when the media starts using the word gravitas, then they all use the same word over. It's like a new word to them. And it did remind me when I was at the Pentagon covering the Pentagon long ago as a newsman during a White House briefing, a Pentagon briefing, a reporter in the Pentagon briefing room asked a question, and he used the word gravitas, but he pronounced it gravitas, gravitas. And forever, me and a couple of friends at the Pentagon would frequently use the word gravitas just to make fun of the poor reporter. He had obviously read the word but hadn't heard anyone say it out loud. So he's talking about gravitas. And still, with a couple of friends, I still say gravitas, and we laugh because it was just a funny little moment in the Pentagon briefing. But it's true. And Rush Limbaugh, we went looking for the Rush Limbaugh montage, and the Internet has not given us they've got links to it, but then it doesn't play. Never mind that. Let's go back to RFK for a second. The Centers for Disease Control, Axios writing now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has updated its website to promote the widely debunked claim that vaccines may cause autism. The claim is that vaccines may cause autism, kind of a soft claim, isn't it? Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has repeatedly linked vaccines to autism, and now the public health agency he oversees is publicly reversing its position to reflect that belief. Multiple studies over decades have disproven links between childhood vaccines and developing autism. The agency's website on vaccines and autism, updated Wednesday, now says the statement that vaccines don't cause autism, quote, is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. Studies supporting a link that have been ignored by health authorities, the website continues. Studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. Now, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility that people, they politicized everything. Medicine and vaccines and autism and children and genders and weather. They politicized absolutely everything. Now, with that said, I see a name on the big board of a person who is close to this that I want to talk to. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to David calling from Clearwater, Florida. David, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi there, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up today. I was telling the caller screener, my daughter has autism, and when we saw it happen, like within, days after she had her immunizations, right, when she was 2 years old. And so many other parents have observed this, and then she's 29 years old, and over the last, many years, the rate of autism is now 1 in 30 kids, and it's pretty incredible. So, we're hugely happy about, but sad in a way that it's taken many, many years for this whole, to chisel away this foundational view in public health that, vaccines don't cause autism. Now let's at least study it, Chris, and the audience. Let's study it, and let parents understand it, the risks. Everything
that's what science is, and you continue to ask questions. And we've had a lot of things in the last handful of years that were considered to be settled science, like how many genders are there. And then the Democrat Party says, no, there aren't 2 genders, there are 120 genders. And we know that to be false. And then they yell at you that they're the party of science when they show that they're the party of science fiction. And David, I saw what Jeff had put up on the screen and said, not enough proof to show if vaccines do or do not cause autism is what you said to Jeff, right?
Sir.
And you say you saw your daughter being vaccinated at the age of 2, and she's 29 years old now, and you saw a change almost immediately shortly after being vaccinated as a 2-year-old.
Yes, sir. What it was is, I'm going to probably start crying, so I don't really want to, but basically, my chubby, sweet, fatty little girl hugging me and talking, lost all of her speech, got wasted, physically wasted. And it looked like she was deaf, and within a month, She completely changed. And I can tell you, Chris, that so many parents have seen this. And it's been denied, and if you ever look into this, pediatricians are trained to tell parents, this is in your head, this is not true, and things of that sort, deny, and let's study it. I can tell you, Chris, every day, listen to this one, 275 kids will be diagnosed, and 100 of them will have severe autism, like my daughter. They'll never drive, they'll never hold a job, they have to have 24/7 care. My daughter has chronic pain all the time. She doesn't speak. It's incredibly challenging, her life, and I say to myself, I was just doing what I'm supposed to as a good parent, vaccinating my kid.
Right.
And we never knew anything about anything like this 30 years ago, Chris. No one even uttered the thought of it. And now that I see it, in such a distant span, all of this heavy amount of fortifying the bases, all of these newspapers like the Post and Times constantly attacking anything that we ever say or RFK ever brings up, or the current administration about studying these things, and how immediately they go on the attack mode. It's just so horrible about the fact that they don't care about us.
Right.
They care about kids.
Well, you're right that they don't care about kids. They call exterminating 1 million a year choice, and they harvest their organs.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Dr. Mengele would be proud of the Democrat Party today. And listen, David, I'm very happy that you called in. I'd like to ask you to hold on for just a moment and listen to this, because this morning on MS-13 DNC, they had on the morning joke show a person who is a medical doctor named Dr. Vin Gupta. As far as we know, no relation to Dr. Sanjay Gupta, but Dr. Vin Gupta was on a pulmonologist on MSDNC this morning, and they asked him, because now you got to attack the Trump administration, the Trump Health Department, you got to attack RFK Jr. because he stopped singing from the Democrat Party sheet music, so he must be destroyed. But this was the exchange with Willie Geist and Dr. Vin Gupta on Morning Joke this morning on this topic.
What's the impact of the CDC now officially putting this out?
And that's unfortunate, but I think ultimately what this means for all of us is that we can't trust the CDC anymore. They are not a scientific or public health authority.
Wow, that's kind of stopped me in my tracks. We cannot trust the CDC anymore.
Stop me in my tracks. There he is, and I looked up this Dr. Vin Gupta, and he naturally is all Ivy League, went to Princeton University for his undergrad and went to Columbia University to become a medical doctor, and just amazing. And what's your, if you had been sitting there at the table on MS-13 DNC this morning, David, how would you have responded?
I would have said, hey, doctor, what do you have to say? Dr. Stanley Plotkin, I know this is kind of deep in the weeds, but he is considered the godfather of modern vaccines. He's developed several. He's in his late 70s, and he has admitted to this fact that we can't establish that vaccines do or do not cause autism. So here's a guy, who's considered revered in this position, and he's no way at all, quote, anti-vaxxer, and he defends vaccines to the hilt. But he's been under oath and in testimony, he's admitted to the fact this has been known for many, many years, Chris, in the audience, that there is no objective, strong data to support this. Right. But it's just in a talking point parroted by public health officials, and they just will never relinquish. They just won't. And he's a strong man, RFK Jr., and his staff and his people, Dr. Barticelli, he's very strong, and they're really going to try to help our families.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's if it's a scientific question, has it been proven or disproven one way or the other? And I just looked up Dr. Plotkin, and he's actually 93 years old now. 93 years old.
Wow.
And he has been a leading authority or the authority on virology and vaccines for a very long time. He is a virologist, an MD, a physician, and a virologist, and widely recognized as a pioneer in vaccine development, 93 years old. And you're saying, David, that he's leaving the door open to the possibility that vaccines can be problematic. And based on your personal experience with your then 2-year-old daughter, now 29-year-old daughter, you're convinced that the vaccine did have something to do, at least, with your daughter finding herself autistic.
Yes, sir. Just that, what other product causes such a rapid decline, in how does a normal kid turn autistic in front of your eyes within weeks of, how does that happen?
Right.
This is called regressive autism. It's a new phenomena, right? This is not how healthy kids are supposed to be.
Right.
You're not supposed to lose skills. These kids magically acquire skills. Like the worst parents in the world can have a kid and they're brilliantly beautiful children that are chatting, and they could sit in front of the TV all day and do but how can a kid regress like that? There's just no. It needs to be looked at. We have to come to an understanding. We can't sell out our nation's children. We can't have this happen. So it's my firm belief. That vaccines cause my daughter to lose all those skills and kind of basically shatter her life. Yesterday she told me that she uses a letterboard to talk, Chris. We were able to access her ability to speak, and she's a brilliant young woman. I could send you a few of the books that she's written. She's a brilliant girl, but yesterday she was upset. Thank you, Chris. Yesterday she was upset, and she was watching a show with one of her aides on a guy and a girl courting. And she said, "Dad, I'm so upset that my autism won't let me have a relationship and have a boyfriend. I'm so sad about that." And it was heartbreaking to hear that. And this is many of the children out there. They're very cogent, smart kids, really great kids. I've known many, dozens and dozens of non-speaking autistic young adults, and they all want things in life, just like anyone's kid. They want a career. They want to do things, and they struggle so with this. And it's a disease that needs to be evaluated. And if vaccines, I believe, Chris, this is my opinion, that there are certain groups of children that may have genetically, they're more vulnerable to the impact of vaccines than other kids. That's why, and it's a very vigorous vaccine schedule, Chris. Your audience can look into it. I believe there's approximately 16 vaccines that are recommended to be given to your kid before 18, and before 2 years old, I believe it's approximately in the mid-20s. Vaccines are
absolutely crazy. And David, I'm very happy that you called in. I'm sorry to put you through this, but I'm very happy that you did. And I know that a lot of people listening to you are going to have their eyes open and start asking questions because of what you've described here today. And the reality is, if it hasn't been disproven, then don't. And all the headlines say, "Oh, that's been debunked." Right, like so many other things in the last 5 years that had been debunked or not. And David, God bless you, and your wonderful daughter too. I'm very happy that you called in. I'm very sad to hear your story, and God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you, Chris. All the best.
Thank you, David. Thank you. When Mary, the Virgin Mary, said, "Let it be done to me according to your word," She embraced God's plan, and even with uncertainty, risk, and sacrifice, her yes brought Jesus into the world. And today, countless mothers across the United States of America face that same moment of decision when they see their baby on an ultrasound. They may be scared, they may be unsure, but it's their moment to say yes, and that moment could pass. But you can make a difference right now. Because of the generosity of listeners like you, people like you, Preborn's network of clinics across the United States can help provide immediate support, helping thousands of mothers embrace life. And over 380,000 babies have already been rescued, thanks to Preborn, showing young mothers their baby on an ultrasound. This holiday season, don't let another life be lost. Be the hope for hurting mothers, for mothers in need, and for babies at risk. Just say yes to life today. To donate securely, all you have to do is dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250. The keyword is baby. You can go online to preborn.com/plant. That's me, preborn.com/PLANTE. Every gift is tax deductible, of course, and it impacts eternity. That's all. Remarkable stuff. And David, a very powerful contribution. I'm grateful that you called in. The media attacking RFK Jr. for changing language doesn't say much. Just says that it hasn't been proven irrevocably one way or the other whether vaccines affect the incidence of autism, but our number of vaccines increased and our number of autistic children increased too. A coincidence? Maybe.
Since the first ADPM report in 1990, autism has increased by a factor of 480%.
Well, that was a very powerful and potent phone call from David in Clearwater, Florida. An extraordinary story about his family and his daughter. And the Democrats are not the party of science. They're the party of anti-science. They politicize all science all the time. They're not reliable. They can't be depended on. And I've got the story of the wool of the gay sheep. The wool of the gay sheep. It's a big story. It's a grinder story. It's a Democrat story.